Let me tell you something, my friend. Have you ever been in a room filled with noise, people talking, opinions flying everywhere, and deep down your spirit whispers, just be still? You see, silence is not weakness. Silence is not avoidance. Silence is strength under control. It's wisdom wrapped in patience. It's the discipline of knowing that not every battle is worth your sword. Not every insult is worth your response, and not every person is meant to walk the road you're walking. I've seen this countless times in my years as a coach. One of my patients, a woman in her 50s, came to me exhausted, burned out from constantly proving herself at work, constantly defending her choices to family, constantly explaining her worth to people who had already decided not to see it. And I asked her, what would happen if you stopped explaining just for 1 week? What if you chose silence? At first, she laughed, thinking silence would make her invisible. But by the end of that week, she told me something remarkable. For the first time in years, I felt peace. And that peace was louder than any argument I could have won. That's the paradox, isn't it? In a world that urges us to clap back, to post, to scream our story, the real power is often found in restraint. Silence is not an absence of voice, it's the presence of control. And when you master that, people notice. They may not admit it, but they feel it. Some will be confused by it, others threatened by it. But the wise ones, they will respect it. And here's what most people don't realize. Silence builds focus. Focus is the ability to separate noise from necessity, distraction from destiny. If you've ever tried meditating for even 2 minutes, you know how loud your own mind can be. Thoughts pulling you in every direction, reminders, regrets, anxieties. But when you learn to sit still to watch those thoughts float by without reacting, you begin to see what actually matters. Silence becomes your filter, your compass. Now let me ask you this. Have you ever chased something love, approval, success thinking? The harder you ran, the closer it would get, only to find that the very act of chasing pushed it further away. I've been there, and I can tell you, peace does not live in pursuit, it lives in presence. The moment you stop chasing and start becoming, that's when life begins to shift. You don't need to beg for blessings when you're already aligned to receive them. One of the most powerful truths I've learned is that silence forces people to meet themselves. When you refuse to engage in arguments, when you stop feeding the chaos, it holds up a mirror. And let me be honest, it makes some people uncomfortable. Because when you're no longer reacting, they can't distract themselves with your energy. They're left facing their own noise. And that's when you realize not everyone deserves your access. Not everyone deserves a seat at your table. Your time, your energy, your spirit, they are gifts, not obligations. A friend of mine once said, "But won't silence make me look weak?" And I told him no. Weakness is needing to prove yourself to people who don't even care. Strength is knowing who you are without an audience. Think about that. A tree doesn't make noise as it grows, but one day its roots are so deep, its branches so wide, no storm can shake it. That's what silence does. It deepens you, prepares you, so that when storms come, you don't need to yell, you just stand unmoved. And let's talk about patience, because silence and patience walk hand in hand. Not every answer is meant to come right away. Not every door needs to open today. When you learn to sit in the waiting, when you stop forcing outcomes, that's when clarity arrives. Science even backs this up. Neuroscientists tell us that when the brain rests, when you're not speaking, not reacting, that's when creativity spikes. That's when problem solving lights up. Silence doesn't just make you calmer, it literally makes you smarter. Here's another truth. Silence reconnects you to yourself. In the rush of life, you can forget what your own voice even sounds like. You can lose your own rhythm, your own desires drowned out by everyone else's demands. But in stillness, you hear again. You rediscover who you are when nobody's watching, when nobody's applauding. That's the real you. And that version of you doesn't beg to be seen. It simply lives with confidence. So I want you to imagine this. You walk into a room. Everyone's talking, bragging, arguing. But you don't have to say a word. Your calm, your presence, your discipline, it speaks for you. That's influence. That's power. Weak people talk about what they'll do. Strong people just do it quietly, consistently, powerfully. I know it's not easy. We live in a culture that rewards noise. That tells us, if you don't post it, it didn't happen. But let me tell you, the greatest victories I've witnessed in patients and friends in my own life were born in silence. The cancer patient who chose to fight privately, not for attention, but for survival. The single mom who stopped arguing with her critics and quietly built a life so strong no one could question her anymore. The young man who chose to let go of toxic friendships, sitting alone at first, but eventually surrounded by people who valued his peace. Growth is quiet. Healing is quiet. Transformation is quiet. You'll never hear a seed break through the soil, but one day you'll see the tree. That's why I tell you today, don't be afraid of the silence. Don't run from it. Embrace it. Because within it, you'll find patience. You'll find clarity. And most importantly, you'll find yourself. And when you step into that version of you, the one that doesn't chase, doesn't beg, doesn't need to shout, you'll realize something powerful. Peace is not just a feeling, it's survival. It's healing. It's the foundation of a life that lasts. So the next time someone provokes you, the next time life tempts you to defend, to explain, to fight back, pause, breathe. Remember this, your silence is not empty. It's full of power. It's saying, I've outgrown this. My peace is my priority. And that, my friend, is the most dangerous kind of strength there is, protecting peace and the power of focus. You know, one of the greatest lessons life will ever teach you is this: your peace is sacred. And once you realize that, you'll never let anyone play with it again. I've coached people for decades, business leaders, athletes, even everyday mothers and fathers, and I've noticed a pattern. The ones who truly rise in life are not the loudest, not the ones constantly chasing attention. They are the ones who protect their peace like it's oxygen. Because it is. Think about it. When was the last time you felt truly at peace? No noise, no chaos, no pretending, just peace. Maybe it was sitting on a porch as the sun went down. Maybe it was a morning walk with no phone, no schedule, just you and your breath. In that moment, didn't life feel lighter? Didn't clarity come easier? That's the power of peace. And yet we spend most of our days giving it away to people and situations that don't deserve it. I had a client once, a young executive, brilliant mind, but constantly drained. She came to me saying, I feel like I'm always exhausted, even on vacation. And I asked her, who are you letting have access to your energy? She paused. She realized she was constantly answering texts that carried confusion, constantly saying yes to events she didn't care about, constantly defending her decisions to colleagues who only wanted to gossip. That's when it hit her. She wasn't tired because life was too heavy. She was tired because she was carrying what wasn't hers. And maybe you felt that too. Maybe you've been someone's emotional dumping ground. Maybe you've bent over backwards trying to please people who never once stopped to ask how you're doing. That's not love. That's not friendship. That's chaos disguised as connection. And the moment you begin to set boundaries, the moment you say, my peace is not up for negotiation, everything changes. I want you to remember this. Boundaries are not walls, they're filters. They don't shut out love, they protect it. They don't isolate you from people, they protect you from the wrong ones. When you set a boundary, you're not saying, I don't care about you. You're saying, I finally care about me. And that's not selfish, that's survival. But here's the hard truth. When you start protecting your peace, you will lose people. Some will call you cold. Some will say, you've changed. And they're right, you have. You've grown. You've healed. You've realized that not everyone deserves access to you. And the ones who get upset about your boundaries, they were never with you. They were just using you. Now let's talk about silence and isolation, because this is where real transformation happens. I know it sounds scary. Nobody likes to feel alone, but I want you to reframe isolation. It's not punishment, it's preparation. Look at nature. The caterpillar doesn't transform into a butterfly in front of an audience. It goes into the dark wrapped in silence, and when it comes out, it's unrecognizable. The same is true for us. Growth doesn't always happen in public. It happens in those quiet nights when you're crying but still decide to get up the next morning. It happens when no one checks on you, but you still speak life into yourself. That's where your strength is built, where your roots go deep. I remember counseling a man who had just gone through a painful divorce. He told me the silence in his house was unbearable. At first, he filled it with TV, with noise, with distractions. But eventually, he chose to sit with it. He started journaling, praying, listening. Months later, he told me that silence I once feared became the very place I found myself again, and that my friend is the gift of isolation. It strips away the noise until all that's left is the truth. And here's where focus comes in. Because silence without focus can feel like emptiness. But silence with focus, that's power. Focus is the art of saying no. No to distractions. No to drama. No to things that look good but aren't good for your soul. Focus is knowing what you're called to do and moving in that direction, even if it costs you comfort, even if it costs you people. I often tell my audience, focus isn't about tunnel vision. It's about sacred vision. It's seeing beyond the noise, beyond temporary pleasure, beyond other people's expectations. When you lock in on what truly matters, life starts to align. Doors open, not because you forced them, but because you became someone ready to walk through them. Science confirms this too. Studies show that when you train your mind to focus, stress levels drop, productivity rises, and creativity flourishes. But beyond the science, focus is spiritual. It's how you hear God in a noisy world. It's how you remember your purpose when everything tries to distract you. So let me ask you, what have you been giving your focus to gossip, fear people who don't respect you, or your growth, your calling, your healing? Because wherever your focus goes, your life flows. And I'll tell you something else. Silence and focus together are dangerous in the best way. A person who can remain quiet when tested, who can stay focused when provoked, is unstoppable. They're not moved by opinions. They're not shaken by disrespect. They know who they are, and they don't need the world to validate it. I want you to imagine this in your own life. Imagine you stop explaining yourself to people who never valued the explanation anyway. Imagine you stop picking up every phone call that drains your energy. Imagine you stop chasing those who left you empty and start building for yourself. How would your life change? What kind of peace would you feel? I've seen it happen. I've seen people reclaim their health, their joy, their purpose, all because they learned to be silent, to be selective, to be focused. They stopped scattering their energy and started guarding it. And in that shift, they became powerful. So hear me when I say this. Silence is not defeat. Boundaries are not cruelty. Isolation is not abandonment. Focus is not selfishness. These are the tools that transform you from the inside out. They don't just protect your peace, they build your destiny. And the next time someone tries to drag you into chaos, I want you to pause and remind yourself, my peace is my priority. My focus is my power. My silence is my strength. Because once you taste that kind of peace, you'll never go back. Conclusion and call to action. So here we are, my friend. After all the words, after all the reflection, it comes down to this simple truth. You don't need to chase. You don't need to beg. You don't need to prove. You just need to become. I want you to let that sink in for a moment. Because how many years of your life have been spent running after people who never valued you, running after success that left you empty, running after approval that never satisfied your soul. And all the while, the real gift, the real peace was waiting not in the noise, but in the silence. You see, silence is not emptiness. Silence is fullness, full of clarity, full of wisdom, full of the power that comes when you finally stop scattering your energy everywhere and start gathering it within yourself. That's when you become unshakable. That's when you step into freedom. I think about a young man I once coached. He had grown up in chaos, noisy household, constant conflict, everyone pulling on him for something. And as an adult, he carried that chaos with him. He felt guilty saying no. He felt guilty setting boundaries. He believed love meant always being available, always giving. But he was drowning. When we started working together, I asked him to do one simple thing. Take 5 minutes every morning, sit in silence, and ask himself, what does my peace need today? At first, he said it felt awkward, almost selfish. But months later, his entire life shifted. He told me, for the first time, I don't feel controlled by chaos. I'm not chasing anymore. I'm choosing. And that, my friend, is the difference between surviving and living. Let me ask you something. What would your life look like if you truly made peace your priority? What would change if you stopped explaining yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you? What would open up if you stopped saying yes out of guilt and started saying yes out of alignment? Because here's the truth. Your life doesn't transform when the world changes. It transforms when you change. When you decide my peace matters, my silence matters, my focus matters. That's when you level up. That's when you stop performing for applause and start living for purpose. And I want you to know this isn't just theory. It's not just motivational talk. This is survival. Chronic stress, constant drama, endless noise. These things don't just steal your joy, they steal your health. Studies show that people who live in constant emotional chaos have higher risks of heart disease, weakened immunity, and depression. Protecting your peace is not just emotional wisdom, it's biological necessity. So when you set boundaries, you're not just saying no to someone else. You're saying yes to your health, your future, your destiny. When you choose silence over drama, you're not avoiding life, you're building a stronger one. And when you focus, when you align, when you stop chasing and start becoming, you step into the kind of life you were created for. Now, I want you to picture this a version of you walking into a room, not with noise, not with demands, not with desperate energy, but with quiet confidence. A version of you who doesn't need to prove a thing because your peace speaks louder than your words. That's the version I want you to meet. That's the version the world needs. And listen, it won't always be easy. People will misunderstand you. Some will walk away. You'll have nights where silence feels heavy. But remember, the caterpillar thought the world was ending and then it became a butterfly. The silence you fear today is the transformation you'll thank tomorrow. So here's my challenge for you starting today. Protect your peace like it's your greatest treasure, because it is. Say no to the conversations that drain you. Step back from the people who only come to take. Stop explaining yourself to those who never cared to understand. And most importantly, carve out time for silence, even if it's just 5 minutes a day. Because in that silence, you'll find answers. In that silence, you'll hear your own soul again. And in that silence, you'll realize you never needed to chase a thing. Everything meant for you will find you not when you beg for it, but when you become ready to carry it. I want you to carry this with you. Peace is not a luxury, it's survival. Silence is not weakness, it's power. Focus is not selfishness, it's alignment. And when you live by these truths, your life begins to bloom. The storms still come, but you're no longer shaken. The noise still surrounds you, but you're no longer distracted. You walk with a quiet strength that cannot be faked, cannot be bought, cannot be broken. So, my friend, the next time the world tempts you to shout, to prove, to chase, choose silence, choose peace, choose focus, because that's where your freedom lives. That's where your true strength is born. And one day, when people look at you and say, "You've changed," you'll smile and think, "Yes, I have. I've finally found myself." Thank you for walking through this journey with me. Thank you for choosing to rise, to protect your peace, to move in silence, and to step into your true becoming. Stay strong, stay grounded, and above all, stay true to yourself, turning philosophy into action. You know, one of the biggest challenges I see is this. People listen to words like these, they nod their heads, they even feel inspired. But then life comes rushing back. The phone rings, the kids are crying, the deadlines stack up, and suddenly all that wisdom about silence and peace feels out of reach. So today, I don't just want to inspire you. I want to give you something practical, something you can carry into tomorrow morning when the alarm goes off. Because transformation doesn't happen in theory, it happens in practice. Let me tell you about Maria, a nurse I once worked with. She loved her job, but she was exhausted. Between double shifts and family drama, she told me, "I don't remember the last time I heard myself think." And so I asked her to try one simple habit every evening before bed: sit in silence for 5 minutes. No phone, no music, no TV, just stillness. At first, she said it was unbearable. Her mind raced, her to-do list screamed. But slowly, night after night, those 5 minutes became her sanctuary. Months later, she told me that silence saved me. It reminded me who I was beyond all the noise. And that's the first practical step I want you to take: schedule silence like an appointment. Because if you don't, the world will fill every moment with noise. Even 5 minutes a day can reset your soul, recalibrate your focus, and remind you that you're more than your chaos. Second, I want you to practice what I call the pause of power. Next time someone provokes you, whether it's a rude comment, an unfair email, or even a family member pushing your buttons, don't react right away. Just pause, breathe, count to 10 if you have to. Science tells us that just a few seconds of delay calms the nervous system and helps your brain choose a wiser response. That pause is where peace is protected, where strength is built. And let's talk about boundaries, because without them, silence will always feel impossible. I want you to imagine your energy like a bank account. Every conversation, every obligation, every argument, it's a withdrawal. Now ask yourself, who's making deposits? Who's pouring back into you? If the answer is almost no one, then no wonder you're bankrupt emotionally. Boundaries are how you protect your account. Saying no isn't rude, it's responsible. You cannot fund your future if you keep spending your peace on people who drain you. I know some of you struggle with guilt. You think, if I say no, they'll think I don't care. But let me challenge that. If someone only values you when you're overextended, is that real care? Or is it control? True love respects boundaries. True friendship celebrates your growth. Anyone who punishes you for protecting your peace is showing you they were never safe for your soul. Now, I also want to talk about focus, because silence without focus can turn into avoidance. Focus gives direction to your peace. I tell my clients to choose 3 priorities a day, just 3, because when everything is a priority, nothing is. When you decide today, I will focus on these 3 things, you stop scattering your energy. And little by little, those small focused actions build momentum. Think about it. The most successful, most grounded people are not doing everything. They're doing what matters most consistently, quietly, powerfully, and you can too. Here's something else: learn to disconnect. Technology is wonderful. I'm using it right now to reach you, but it can also be a thief of peace. Endless scrolling, endless notifications, endless noise. What if once a week you had a silence day? No social media, no unnecessary chatter, just you, nature, maybe a journal, maybe a long walk. I promise you, those days will feel like a detox for your soul. And let me say this, silence doesn't mean isolation forever. We are wired for connection, but the key is selective connection. Surround yourself with people who honor your boundaries, who respect your silence, who bring calm instead of chaos. When you choose relationships rooted in peace, you don't just survive, you thrive. I remember a man in his 60s who told me, all my life I thought success was about how many people I could gather around me. But now, the older I get, I realize true success is about how many of them bring me peace. Isn't that powerful? Maybe it's time to stop counting followers and start counting peace givers. So here's what I want you to do this week. Find 5 minutes of silence every day. Practice the pause of power before reacting. Set one clear boundary that protects your peace. Choose 3 priorities each morning and stick to them. Disconnect from the noise at least once a week. Simple steps, not dramatic, but if you do them consistently, they will reshape your life. Because here's the truth. Peace isn't found in one big breakthrough moment. It's built in small daily decisions. Choosing not to respond to every insult. Choosing to walk away from drama. Choosing to sit in stillness even when it feels uncomfortable. Choosing to focus on what matters instead of chasing what doesn't. And over time, those choices become a lifestyle. A lifestyle where you are no longer controlled by chaos, no longer drained by noise, no longer chasing validation that never satisfies. Instead, you become steady, grounded, free. So, my friend, as we close this chapter together, I want you to remember, silence is not the absence of sound. It's the presence of strength. And the more you practice it, the more you'll discover that your life doesn't need more noise, it needs more depth. Choose that depth. Protect that peace. Live with that focus. And watch how your world transforms, not because the noise disappeared, but because you finally learned how to rise above it. A real-life story about the power of silence. I want to share a story with you. A story about a man named David. He's not famous. He's not a celebrity. He's just an ordinary man. But his journey taught me more about silence and peace than any textbook ever could. David came to me a few years ago in his early 40s. He was a successful professional on the outside, great job. Nice house, the kind of life that looks perfect on social media. But when he sat down in my office, his eyes told a different story. He said, "I'm exhausted. I feel like I'm fighting battles every single day, and I don't even know why anymore." He told me about the constant arguments with colleagues, the pressure to defend every idea, the endless effort to prove his worth. At home, it wasn't much different. Family members leaned on him for everything: financial support, emotional support, even approval for decisions that weren't his to make. And he confessed something that broke my heart. "Sometimes I scream in the car on my way home just to let the pressure out. But when I walk through that front door, I smile like nothing's wrong." Have you ever felt like that? Smiling outside, screaming inside, carrying noise in your soul, even when the world thinks you're strong. I looked at David and asked him one question. What would happen if you stopped explaining? What if you chose silence? At first, he laughed. Silence. That would make me look weak. People would walk all over me. And maybe you've thought the same. Maybe you believe silence is surrender. But I told David silence isn't surrender. It's strategy. It's strength. It's choosing peace over pointless battles. So we started small. The next time a coworker tried to drag him into an unnecessary argument, I told him to pause. Just breathe. Say less. Listen more. And the next time a family member made an unreasonable demand, instead of launching into a long explanation, I asked him to try something new. Simply say, "No, I can't do that right now." Nothing more. No justification. Just a boundary spoken calmly. It was awkward at first. He told me, "My silence made people uncomfortable. They pushed harder. They asked why I wasn't answering like before." And I said, "Exactly. Because silence forces people to face themselves. It forces them to realize you're no longer playing the same game." Weeks turned into months, and slowly, something started to change. David began to notice how much energy he saved by not engaging in every battle. He said, "I used to come home drained. Now I still have enough strength to sit with my kids, to read, to just breathe." His colleagues, they eventually stopped testing him because his calm became unshakable. His family, some were offended by his new boundaries, but the ones who truly loved him adjusted, respected, even admired his strength. One day he came into my office with tears in his eyes. He said, "For the first time in my adult life, I feel free. I don't need to prove myself anymore. My silence is enough." And you know what struck me most? His silence didn't make him invisible. It made him powerful. He walked differently. He spoke differently. He carried a quiet confidence that no one could take away. The very thing he feared losing, respect, became the opposite. People respected him more because he no longer wasted his voice on battles that didn't matter. Now, I will want you to pause and imagine what would happen if you lived like David. What would change in your life if you stopped explaining yourself to people who are committed to misunderstanding you? What if you conserved your energy for what really matters? Your health, your purpose, your peace. Maybe you're like David, successful on the outside, but screaming inside. Maybe you've been giving too much access to people who haven't earned it. Maybe you've been reacting to noise that doesn't deserve your attention. And maybe, just maybe, it's time to try silence. Because silence doesn't mean doing nothing. It means choosing intentionally. It means saying, "My energy is precious and I won't waste it on what doesn't align with my purpose." Silence is not about losing your voice, it's about strengthening it. So when you do speak, your words carry weight. David's story reminds me of something I tell every audience I speak to. You don't always need to be louder to be heard. Sometimes the most powerful statement you'll ever make is your calm. So my friend, let me ask you, where in your life do you need David's kind of silence? Is it at work, where colleagues bait you into arguments? Is it at home, where loved ones pull you into guilt? Is it in your own mind, where you argue with yourself endlessly? Wherever it is, I want you to know this. You have the power to step back, to pause, to guard your peace. And just like David, you'll find that silence isn't weakness. It's wisdom. It's not avoidance. It's intention. It's not retreat. It's strength. And one day, you'll look back and realize that silence didn't steal your power, it revealed it. The scientific and psychological perspective on the power of silence. You know, people often ask me, is silence just a spiritual idea, or does science actually back it up? And I love that question. Because the truth is, silence isn't just philosophy, it's biology, it's psychology, it's neuroscience. Let me start with your brain. Researchers at Duke University discovered something fascinating. When mice were exposed to silence for 2 hours a day, their brains actually started generating new brain cells in their hippocampus, the part responsible for learning and memory. Think about that. Silence was literally growing the brain. And while we're not mice, the principle applies. Moments of quiet aren't just restful, they're regenerative. They help your brain repair, recharge, and even rewire. Now let's talk about stress. We live in a culture of constant noise, social media notifications, traffic arguments. All that noise isn't harmless. It triggers the body's fight or flight system, releasing cortisol, the stress hormone. Chronic noise means chronic cortisol, which leads to anxiety, insomnia, even heart problems. But here's the good news. Studies show that just 2 minutes of complete silence can lower blood pressure, slow your heart rate, and calm your nervous system more effectively than listening to relaxing music. Imagine that 2 minutes of silence can undo hours of tension. And then there's the psychology of it. Silence creates what psychologists call psychological distance. When you step back and stop reacting, your brain gets the space to process, to see clearly, to choose wisely. That's why people who practice mindfulness, who sit quietly, who breathe, who observe without reacting consistently report higher levels of emotional regulation. They're less likely to explode in anger. They're less likely to spiral into anxiety. They've trained their brains to pause before reacting. I remember one of my patients, a teenage boy, struggling with anger. Every small conflict felt like a trigger. He'd yell, slam doors, lash out. His parents brought him to me desperate. We didn't start with lectures. We started with silence. I taught him a breathing technique: inhale for 4, hold for 4, exhale for 6, done quietly, privately. That tiny pocket of silence rewired his responses. Over time, his teachers noticed fewer outbursts. His parents noticed calmer conversations. And he noticed something else. For the first time, he felt in control, not controlled by his emotions. That's the power of silence in action, and psychology confirms it. Now let's flip to relationships. Have you ever noticed how silence can reveal the truth faster than words? In communication studies, researchers found that when one person responds with silence instead of defensiveness, it often diffuses conflict faster. Why? Because silence denies fuel to the fire. Arguments need energy to survive. When you stop feeding them, they run out of oxygen. That's not avoidance, it's wisdom. And what about focus? Neuroscientists tell us that the brain can only focus on one thing deeply at a time. Multitasking, constant chatter, endless noise. It fractures attention, making us less productive, less creative. But silence. Silence restores attention. Silence resets your ability to concentrate. In fact, top athletes and CEOs often practice something called strategic silence, taking moments before big decisions to quiet their minds, to align, to focus. They know clarity doesn't come from noise. It comes from stillness. There's even evidence from cardiology. Patients recovering from heart surgery who spent more time in quiet, peaceful environments healed faster with fewer complications compared to those in noisy environments. Silence literally speeds up healing. And maybe most fascinating of all, spiritual psychology tells us that silence increases our ability to connect with meaning. Carl Jung once wrote, "In the silence, the soul finds its path." Modern psychologists echo this. When people sit in quiet reflection, they're more likely to report feelings of purpose, gratitude, and connection to something larger than themselves. It's not just about being calm, it's about being aligned. So when I stand here and tell you silence is strength, I'm not speaking in riddles. I'm speaking in facts. Silence builds new brain cells. Silence lowers stress and heals the body. Silence rewires emotional control. Silence strengthens focus and productivity. Silence deepens meaning and purpose. But let me be clear, silence is not always comfortable. Psychologists say many people avoid silence because it forces them to face their inner world. When the noise is gone, the truth gets louder, the unhealed wounds, the suppressed fears, the unspoken dreams. That's why some people keep the TV on all day, scroll endlessly, or surround themselves with drama. It's not that they love the noise, it's that they fear the silence. But here's the beautiful paradox. The very silence you fear is the silence that heals. Facing yourself in quiet is not easy, but it's necessary, because only when you hear your own soul again Can you start to live authentically, intentionally, freely? So the next time you're tempted to fill the silence with distraction, I want you to remember the science. Remember that 2 minutes of silence can lower your stress more than music. Remember that silence is literally growing your brain. Remember that silence is strengthening your heart, healing your body, and centering your mind. Silence isn't just poetry, it's psychology, it's neuroscience, it's medicine. And maybe that's why the ancients always said still waters run deep, because beneath the quiet is where the real transformation happens. Final call and emotional connection. My friend, if you've walked with me through this journey, through silence, through peace, through focus, through the science, through the stories, then I want to pause right here and simply say thank you. Thank you for giving me your time, your attention, your heart, because I know how rare that is in a world that pulls us in 1,000 directions. And now, as we close, I want to leave you with something deeper than words. I want to leave you with a challenge, a calling, a reminder that silence is not just something you listen to, it's something you live. Here's the truth. Life will always be loud. The world won't suddenly get quieter for you. People will still misunderstand you. Opinions will still fly. Challenges will still come. But you get to choose who you will be in the middle of it all. You can be the one who gets swept up reacting to every sound, every insult, every distraction. Or you can be the one who stands still, calm, grounded, unshakable. And I know choosing peace isn't easy. Some days it will feel like you're walking against the current. People will question you. Some will say you've changed. Some will even leave. But I want you to remember this. You're not here to be understood by everyone. You're here to be true to yourself. So let me ask you, where in your life do you need to reclaim silence? Is it in your relationships learning to stop explaining yourself to those who never listen? Is it in your work choosing to focus instead of scattering your energy? Is it in your own heart turning off the noise long enough to hear God, to hear truth, to hear yourself again? Because when you choose silence, you're not losing anything. You're gaining everything. You're gaining clarity, focus, wisdom, freedom. And the more you practice it, the more you'll see that silence was never weakness. It was strength all along. I think of it this way. When you stop chasing, you start becoming. When you stop shouting, you start hearing. When you stop scattering, you start growing. And when you stop begging for peace from the world, you finally create it within yourself. That's the shift. That's the transformation. Let me share something personal with you. Years ago, I went through my own season of noise. I was speaking everywhere, traveling constantly, saying yes to everything. From the outside, it looked like success. But inside, I was crumbling. My spirit was restless, my health was failing, my peace was gone. And it wasn't until I sat in silence, until I stripped away the noise, that I realized success without peace is just survival. But success with peace, that's freedom. That's life. And I want that for you. Not just applause, not just validation, not just achievements. I want you to know the kind of peace that lets you sleep at night, the kind of peace that carries you through storms, the kind of peace that makes you unshakable, even when the world shakes around you. So here's my invitation tonight. Before you go to bed, give yourself 5 minutes. Just 5 minutes. Turn everything off. Sit in silence. Breathe. Listen. Don't try to force answers. Don't try to control anything. Just be still. And I promise you, in that stillness, something sacred will rise. Maybe it's clarity. Maybe it's courage. Maybe it's just a deep exhale you didn't know you needed. But it will rise. And tomorrow when the noise comes, and it will remember your power. Remember that you don't have to attend every argument you're invited to. You don't have to respond to every opinion thrown your way. You don't have to chase anyone or anything. Your silence is enough. Your peace is enough. You are enough. If you take nothing else from this entire journey, take this: protect your peace as if your life depends on it. Because it does. And don't let anyone make you feel guilty for choosing calm over chaos, focus over distraction, silence over noise. This is your life, and you only get one. So rise. Rise in silence. Rise in strength. Rise in peace. Let the world see, not because you shouted it, not because you proved it, but because your very presence carries it. And as we close, I want to leave you with these words. The loudest thing you may ever say in this life is nothing at all. But in that nothing your soul speaks, in that nothing your peace shines, and in that nothing the world will finally see the strength that was always inside you. Stay strong, stay grounded, stay true to yourself, and never forget the most powerful move you can make in life is sometimes no move at all, just silence. Thank you for listening. Thank you for walking this path with me. And may your silence, your peace, and your purpose carry you into the life you were always meant to live, when silence becomes a legacy. My friend, if you're still here listening to my words after this long journey, then I know something about you. You're searching. You're not satisfied with noise. You're not content with shallow answers. You want something deeper, and that in itself is a beautiful sign. Because silence doesn't just change your life, it changes the legacy you leave behind. I've worked with people at the end of their lives, patients in their 70s, 80s, even 90s. And do you know what they tell me? They don't regret the moments they stayed silent instead of fighting. They regret the times they wasted their peace on people who didn't deserve it. They regret chasing approval when they could have been living in authenticity. They regret noise, but they never regret peace. I remember one woman, Evelyn, in her late 70s. She was a strong, fiery personality, most of her life always the loudest in the room, always quick to defend herself. But as she aged, she told me something I'll never forget. She said, "I thought power was in being heard. But as I look back, I realized my real power was in the moments I held my tongue, the times I walked away, the days I chose silence. That's when I grew. That's when I protected myself." And she smiled with tears in her eyes. "I just wish I had learned it sooner." Isn't that what we all want to learn sooner? To not waste decades fighting meaningless battles. To not spend our best energy defending ourselves to people who were never listening anyway. So here's my prayer for you, that you don't have to wait until the end to realize the value of silence. That you can start now, wherever you are, whatever age you are, whatever stage you're in. Silence, my friend, is not the absence of life. It is the fullness of it. When you choose silence, you create space for love, for clarity, for creativity, for God to speak. Without silence, life becomes a blur of reaction. With silence, life becomes a symphony of intention. And here's the part I want you to carry like a seed in your heart. Your silence becomes other people's safety. When you refuse to add to the noise, you create space for others to breathe. When you stay calm in the storm, you remind others that storms don't last forever. When you choose patience over ego, you model strength that ripples far beyond you. I once coached a young father, overwhelmed, constantly snapping at his kids. I taught him what I called the silent embrace. When his son spilled juice or his daughter argued instead of yelling, he would pause, kneel down, and just hold them in silence. No lecture, no anger, just presence. Years later, that son told me, "Those silent hugs taught me more about love than words ever could." That's the legacy of silence. It's not just about your peace. It's about the peace you pass on to your children, to your friends, to every soul who crosses your path. So let me ask you, what kind of legacy do you want to leave? A legacy of noise, of endless battles, of wasted energy, or a legacy of peace, of calm, strength, of silence that spoke louder than words ever could? Because one day, people will remember you, and they won't remember every argument you won, every point you proved, every opinion you defended. They'll remember how you made them feel. They'll remember your calm, your steadiness, your peace. They'll remember your silence. And that silence will speak even when you're gone. That silence will become your legacy. So as we close this entire journey together, I want you to breathe deeply. Right here, right now. Inhale peace, exhale noise, and whisper to yourself, "My silence is my strength. My peace is my priority. My life is my legacy." Carry that with you. Live it. Protect it. And when the world tempts you to be loud, to be reactive, to be scattered, remember this final truth. Sometimes the most powerful sound you'll ever make is the sound of silence. When you begin living true to yourself. If you're still here listening, it means you've stayed with me through all the noise, all the reflection, all the stories. And I want you to know this, that says something about you. It says you're hungry, hungry for truth, hungry for peace, hungry for a life that feels real, not just loud. And that's the beginning of everything awareness. Because you can't change what you won't face. And by choosing to sit here to reflect on silence, you've already started facing the truth that your soul is craving something deeper than distraction. I want you to imagine something with me. Imagine it's 5 years from now. You wake up in the morning and instead of grabbing your phone immediately, you breathe, you smile. You feel calm. Your life is no longer defined by rushing or chasing or explaining. You move slower, steadier. You choose your words carefully. You no longer feel the need to prove yourself to everyone. And when people see you, they notice something different. They may not be able to put it into words, but they feel it. You are grounded. You are whole. You are free. That's the life silence builds. Not a life without challenges, but a life where challenges don't control you anymore. I once spoke with a young woman who told me, I feel like I'm always performing for my family, for my friends, even for strangers online. I don't even know who I am when I'm alone. And I looked at her and said, then that's your starting point. Learn who you are in the quiet. Because that version of you, the one that doesn't need applause, is the real you. Months later, she wrote me a letter. She said, I took your advice. I started spending 10 minutes every day in silence. At first it was scary, but now it's my favorite part of the day. And for the first time, I feel like I know myself. Maybe that's what you need too. Not another loud achievement, not another performance for approval, but a return to yourself. Because here's the truth. The world doesn't need a louder version of you. It needs a truer version of you. The you who is calm in chaos. The you who is steady in storms. The you who doesn't chase noise but radiates peace. And let me tell you something I've learned after decades of working with people. When you find that version of yourself, the right people will find you. The right opportunities will find you. The right doors will open not because you forced them, but because you were finally aligned. Silence doesn't push away. Silence makes space for the life you were meant to live. But here's the challenge. It takes courage. Courage to walk away from old habits. Courage to say no when you used to say yes. Courage to let people misunderstand you. Courage to let go of the noise that once defined you. And yes, it hurts. It's uncomfortable, but every transformation is. The caterpillar doesn't become a butterfly without the cocoon. The seed doesn't become a tree without the dark soil. And you won't become who you're meant to be without moments of silence, moments of stillness, moments of letting go. So tonight, when the lights go off and you're alone with your thoughts, I want you to remember this. You don't need to have all the answers. You don't need to fix everything right now. You just need to choose peace, one moment at a time, one breath at a time, one silent decision at a time, because silence isn't about doing nothing, it's about doing the right thing. It's about choosing what matters and letting go of what doesn't. And over time, those small silent choices will add up. They'll shape your character, your relationships, your destiny. And maybe one day, years from now, someone will look at you and say, there's something about you. You carry peace. You don't need to shout, but when you walk in, the whole room feels it. And you'll smile, knowing it wasn't luck. It wasn't performance. It was the fruit of silence. The reward of choosing peace over chaos again and again. So my friend, let this be your takeaway. Silence is not the end of your story. It's the beginning of your becoming. Protect it, practice it, live it, and let it shape you into the strongest, truest, freest version of yourself. And when life tempts you to go back to noise, to chaos, to chasing, pause, breathe, smile, and whisper to yourself, I don't chase anymore. I don't beg anymore. I don't prove anymore. I become. That, my friend, is the life you were born to live. Let me tell you something, my friend. Sometimes the most powerful move you can make in life is no move at all, just silence. Silence isn't weakness, it's strength under control. It's knowing you don't have to fight every battle, respond to every insult, or explain yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. We live in a world that tells us to clap back, to prove, to shout louder. But the truth is, peace doesn't live in the noise. Peace lives in the quiet. In the still moments where you choose calm over chaos, focus over distraction, purpose over performance. Think about it. You've never heard a tree grow, but one day its roots are so deep, no storm can shake it. That's what silence does for you. It grows you in ways people can't see until one day your presence speaks louder than your words ever could. And yes, people might say you've changed. They'll say you're distant. You're different, and they're right, because you've grown. You've learned that not everyone deserves your energy. Not everyone gets access to your soul, and not every invitation deserves your presence. So the next time life tries to drag you into noise, pause, Breathe. Remember, your silence is your strength, your peace is your priority, and your focus is your power. Because in the end, you don't need to shout to be seen. You don't need to chase to be chosen. You don't need to beg to be loved. All you need is to become. My friend, if this short message touched you, the full version will go even deeper. In the long video, I'll take you further into how silence becomes strength, how to protect your peace, and how you can truly step into a life of freedom no longer pulled away by the world's noise. Watch the full video through the link I've placed in the comments below. I promise it will change the way you see true strength in life. My friends, sometimes the loudest thing you can say in this life is nothing at all. Silence is not weakness. It's wisdom wrapped in patience. It's discipline that chooses peace over ego. And it's the foundation of a freedom most people will never know. In this full video, I want to walk with you deeper beyond the surface, beyond the noise. We'll explore why silence is not avoidance but intention, why protecting your peace isn't selfish but survival, and why the strongest souls are often the quietest ones carrying their strength, not in what they shout, but in how they live. You'll hear reflections, real-life stories, and even science that shows us silence is medicine for the mind, healing for the body, and clarity for the soul. And more than that, you'll discover how to begin small daily practices that allow you to step back, breathe, and remember who you are when no one is watching. Because let's be honest, life will always be loud. People will misunderstand you, opinions will fly, drama will try to pull you in. But in that moment, you get to choose. Will you be swept up in the chaos, or will you stand still, calm, unshakable? This video is not about perfection. It's not about performing for the world. It's about returning to yourself. It's about learning that your silence speaks louder than noise. It's about realizing that your peace is your priority. And it's about stepping into the life you were meant to live, anchored, grounded, free. So if this short message touched you, don't stop here. Watch the full journey. Let it challenge you. Let it comfort you. Let it remind you of the power that's been inside you all along. I promise it will change the way you see strength, the way you carry peace, and the way you walk through the storms of life. Stay strong, stay grounded, and above all, stay true to yourself.